Let me just quickly introduce myself. My name is Todd Graken. I'm part of the sales account team, a strategic account manager working with the VMware team. And I want to thank you all for coming here today and for coming to the conference. I know it's been a great week and a long week. So without much further ado, I know we're standing between you and a couple of additional activities. But I want to take a moment to introduce someone who, to me, represents not just trying to get stuff done, not just trying to crank out more reports, not just trying to get through an implementation, but someone who truly focuses on enabling the business. So without further ado, would you please help me introduce Ginger Victor, Manager of BI and Reporting at VMware.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for, I really appreciate you guys attending my session today. I know that there's a lot going on. A lot of other presentations that you're missing to come to mine. It looks like there must be some really great lunch out there today. I know it's a little scattered, but I really appreciate you guys being here today with me. So I wanted to start out a little bit about myself. I was born, raised, and still reside in Colorado, so Colorado native. My family and I we live in Windsor, and I have a very dynamic 2-year-old that it keeps me extremely busy these days. So from a professional perspective, I have been in the BI profession for over 10 years now. I really started actually more on the development side of things, and my passion has really been more leaning towards the strategic side of BI, the bigger implementations, company-wide impacts. My team is a little bit different at VMware. We are acting now as the BI Center of Excellence, and we really partner with the business and with the IT team to deliver solutions across VMware. The most recent implementation that we did, obviously, is our Tableau Enterprise implementation that I was a lead on, and I'm really excited to be able to share my story with you guys today. So a little bit about what's in it for you. What are you going to get out of this today? So we're going to be able to talk about some strategies in terms of how we implemented Tableau to really make sure that we're bringing together that analyst community across the company, all by really trying to put the pieces of the information together in one consolidated place, and doing all of this through really getting your executive teams excited. So a little expectation setting. So if you were expecting to see some really cool report demos, I think you've gotten plenty of those this week. We're not going to be doing that. So, but I do hope that out of this, you guys can get some strategies, some ideas, some different insight in terms of how to implement Tableau at your companies. So I wanted to start first a little bit with some background in terms of what VMware is all about. I think that really helps to understand the strategy that we went forward with. So for those of you that know VMware, we've really been a power to reckon with in terms of the virtualization space. So we really thrive off of innovation to really make sure that we are able to meet the demands of our customers in the industry. We are a global-based company, so both internally and externally we have customers and employees across the globe. Extremely results-oriented. Again, when I talk about that customer focus, again, internally and externally, all we want to do is really make sure that we're meeting the needs of the customers and responding quickly to them. With this demand now for companies to really transition a lot of their hardware into virtualized deployments, this has really just made a tremendous growth for VMware overall. So I did want to give you guys just a little bit of a visualization in terms of how big our company has really grown in the last few years. So VMware was born, if you will, in 1998. And you can see that even within the last 5 years, our company has doubled in size, which is amazing. We now have over 25,000 employees. And it's really cool. We have this internal application at VMware where you can go and look up your name. And I know we have some VMware people here. I think we've all done it. And see how long you've been at VMware opposed to everybody else in the population. So I came onto VMware in 2010. And I have been at VMware longer than 76% of the employees. So I'm an old timer. So what does this lead to? And for many of you that have either been in small companies or have experienced that fast growth in companies, it leads to a lot more organization growth, more employees, more complex business models, overall just more information to be gathering and to be looking at. And so really a lot of this fast growth, I think this picture will probably resonate with a lot of you guys, but it really led to this environment of duplication, inconsistencies, a lot of manual efforts to get at the information. And especially when you're looking at a business that has this rapid turnaround time and need for information, it's nothing that comes out in terms of like rebellion, right? But it's really just the business needs to be able to get at information quickly to do their jobs. A really interesting thing we did a survey at VMware in terms of what people were using. So what BI tools were they using before we decided to implement Tableau? And the results came back, and 50% of our analyst community was using Excel as their #1 BI tool. Pretty amazing. So we definitely had that challenge in front of us. So what is our strategy and our response to this? We know that there is this real need for speed. We have to keep the business agile, but we also have to recognize that we are in a state of information anarchy now. And to really be able to sustain our business and to keep growing, we know that we have to get that under control. So our strategy is simple. We want to enable self-service from a sanctioned single source of truth. That's easy, right? But what does it mean? We really want to make sure that we are focusing on making sure the data is accurate, that it's accessible for analysts, and letting the business stay agile and do what they need to do from the analytics perspective. We're really focusing on 3 major core elements. So 1 being the data foundation, 2 being the people, and 3 being the tools. From a data foundation perspective, we just recently implemented the Greenplum technology and have collapsed multiple data marts that were across the business into one centralized location. And that story will come into play a little bit more when I talk about the innovation environment for Tableau. The second piece is the people and the culture, right? We had to get out there, we had to get executives bought into this strategy of getting their users on the enterprise. A few things that we've done with that. One is we now have a centralized data governance team. We do have the centralized BI team now. And again, we're really trying to make this culture shift, starting with the executives, and get them bought in to trickle down through the rest of their organization. When we talk about the tools perspective, we do have corporate BI tools at VMware. We actually have thousands of reports on them. We have hundreds of users. But what we're still finding is that we're having a really hard time getting adoption with these. And a lot of that goes back to the fact that the business wants that rapid turnaround time and the ability to change and request changes quickly. So when we went out and said, what's the main gap that we are really looking at from a tools perspective, for us it was all around self-service. So self-service is that word that really means different things to different people. And it depends who you are, what you're trying to do, what does self-service mean? So I actually wanted to go through a little bit of an exercise here with you guys to get your understanding of what self-service means. So we'll be looking at 3 different definitions here. Just take a look and, you can feel free to shout out loud or, just internally think of what self-service means to you. So the first one is really where end users are designing and deploying their own reports and having full control, end-to-end, of their tools and their information. The second one is more where you have that centrally owned IT model where the data, the tools, the reports are all owned, managed, created by IT. But the business has the ability to request changes, request new reports, request data as needed. And the third one is a little bit of a blend in terms of letting the end users design and deploy all their reports and analytics, while we have more of a centrally managed environment, architecture, and tools for them to utilize. Any thoughts? So there's no wrong or right answer, but really when we were trying to get our arms around what self-service means and really put a definition around that, this quote from Gartner really resonated with us. So when you look at the spectrum of self-service, right, you have one end where you have really that high customization model. And this is really the business, owning, managing the data, the information. And a lot of pros to this too, right? They can have a rapid turnaround time. They respond very quickly. But oftentimes what this leads to is a lot of individualized reports, information, inconsistencies, and duplication across the company. On the other side of the spectrum, it's more of that one-size-fits-all model. And this is really when we're looking at the standard reports, standard dashboards. And again, from a governance perspective, this is great, right? You have everybody using the same information, the same reports. The problem with this model is that, oftentimes the information, the reports, the need from the business will get very stale, and it's often a longer turnaround time to get changes implemented here. So really what we're focusing on is the foundation. So we want to be able to enable both ends of the spectrum while we're really focusing on making sure that everybody is making business decisions used off the same core set of data. So why Tableau? How does Tableau play into our strategy? When we were doing the tools analysis, Tableau just really hit the mark in terms of a lot of the capabilities that we were looking for. We talk about the need for speed, and really with the rapid development capabilities, users can get in there and really innovate and be able to figure out what they want to be doing while they're creating the reports and the information. The other side of it was the executive focus. A lot of our reports today and information are delivered to our executives via PowerPoints or Excel. So this was really an exciting way for the executive teams to start consuming information in a completely different way. Looking at how many spreadsheets are used to drive business decisions today, we did know that we needed the capabilities to be able to have users blend data on the fly. And the other part of it was, again, making sure that the business still felt like they were part of owning their own solutions. And with the ease of use of Tableau, it really allows that developer capability to be in the hands of the business users. So I think that's good in terms of background, and let's get into the approach a little bit more now in terms of our implementation. So I wanted to start first with just the team that implemented Tableau at VMware. And typically this can be just an IT organization, but what we did a little bit differently here is we had kind of three sides that worked on this implementation. So one of them was my team, the BI team, and what we focused more on, again, was that business enablement side. How was the business going to be using it? How was it going to change the way that they were doing reporting today? The IT side was more around the technology, the architecture, the infrastructure, really that end-to-end piece of making sure that we had a great foundation of what we were standing up. The third side was we had a Tableau partner come in, Slalom, that really, for us, was a huge benefit because we did not have that much experience or expertise with Tableau. And so what he did was come in with a view of best practices, different options, and making sure that he understood our strategy and what we wanted to move forward with on how we would be implementing Tableau at VMware. The key thing here, too, is that, though we were three different teams, we really worked together. We had the same vision of what success was going to mean at the end of the day. So to give you a little bit of an idea of the deployment scope, when we're talking about this enterprise-wide implementation, it was a lot. We had to think about the architecture, again, that foundation of what we were going to be standing up. So this is a lot more of the technology piece of the security, the configuration, upgrades. And today when I talk about this, I'm not going to get into the technical details, but I do want to really hone in on how we set up our environments because it's really important in terms of our strategy. Governance and processes. What were we going to really govern, and what was it going to look like operating end-to-end? Who was going to be involved when? How were they going to be involved? What was the whole end-to-end process going to look like? The data foundation side of it. What was going to be our strategy around data, around getting users access to the data? And then the training and adoption. So what was going to be our strategy around onboarding users? How are we going to make sure that they were successful? How are we going to communicate the strategy throughout the company? So overall, it was a lot to do in 6 months. So I want to get into the architecture piece of it. And again, I really think it's important for you guys to understand really the environments that we set up. So we had two environments. One of them is the innovation environment. One of them is the production environment. So the innovation environment was really a place for the developer community to play. It was really a sandbox environment. They can do whatever they want to do. We're not monitoring any activities that are going on in there. They really have the freedom to do what they need to do. We provided then ability for them to get to basically a snapshot of all of our enterprise production data. When I talked about that green plum and where we have all of our enterprise data now in one consolidated place, it was huge in terms of letting the users now be able to access data across our enterprise. And this was also the environment that they can connect to anything else they want to. So if they have spreadsheet data, if they have some business-owned information, if they make up data to just figure out what they want to do, they have the ability to do that here. In terms of the collaboration, a lot of the builders are on desktop, but what we did is we set up project folders that were owned by each organization. And each organization then had a project leader that was ultimately responsible for the content, the access, the information that was going to be published in those folders. This was really a great way for us to be able to have users collaborate and share their report, their content, their information. One thing that we learned pretty early on, actually, is we wanted to make the innovation environment just a space for developers, no consumers. And very quickly, we found that we needed a space for the consumers to come on and do some validation of the reports and be able to easily share some of the reports that were in prototype mode with our users. So we did allow some limited consumers onto this environment as well. So once the developers have created this gem of information or these amazing reports and they say, this is something that we really want to make sure that we're sharing with the rest of the enterprise, we kick in a process of moving it to production. And I'll talk about that process a little bit more coming up. So the production environment now has both the developer community and all of the consumer community. And you'll notice the difference here is that we only allow certified data sources in this area. There is no other data sources. So this is really the place where, as a consumer, when I come to look at my reports, look at my information, I know that this is certified. This is what I should be using. This is what my organization tells me I should be using to measure my business. So getting a little bit more into the governance and processes side of it. When we first started out, we had some grand ideas about having this review board. And this review board was going to be taking a look at all of the reports, all of the data, all of the information coming through and moving to production. The reality is we did not have the resources to be able to do that. And we just felt like it wasn't quite as value add for where we were trying to go. So what we focused more on was, again, the data. So the business and the project leaders were ultimately responsible for approving any of the reports that were coming through. And what we looked at more was the data side. So if we see data coming in that may be new data that we don't have at all in the enterprise, we then kicked off more of a governance process to talk to the business to see what we needed to do with it. Is it something that should be a part of our enterprise data warehouse, or maybe it shouldn't? So again, our focus really was more on the data. So what we supplemented with that was a way for the business to have the right expectations around what we were going to allow in production and allowing them to start off being successful with that. So we had guidelines, we had some templates that we wanted everybody to be using within the company. We had a checklist. So if I know I want to move something to production, what do I need to think about for my reports? What do I need to think about for my data? And make sure that I think the key thing with this one, too, is we had to go through all of these checklists and really say what's important for us that's just going to be a guideline. We want to make sure that the business is thinking through these things before they publish versus what's a policy. What will absolutely not go through to production if it's not adhered to. So that was really important in terms of setting expectations. And again, talking about this role of the business, playing a role of owning their content and owning their information. So again, having this project leader role, was really great in terms of making sure that they had their own standards for their business. Each business organization should be able to say, yes, this is a report that I want to share with the rest of the organization, and it's not something that we were going to be focusing on. As we were defining all of these parts and pieces, it was really important for us to look at the end-to-end spectrum to see what made sense. and make sure that we, didn't have any gaps in terms of the processes, or even being able to look at the processes and saying, you know what, this is going to take too much time, too much effort. It's not value add. So I really would encourage you guys to make sure that you do look at that end to end. For the data foundation, what we wanted to do was create some pre-built Tableau data sets with our enterprise data. So what we did is we evaluated our core data sets that we were using at VMware in all of our different BI applications, and we made sure to build those out that were, ready for business use, scalable, had high performance, had standard definitions. And what this really did, the benefits that I saw from this is, one, as we were bringing on new users and we're having a conversation about, what are you guys using today? What are you doing? And they say something like, I'm importing a lot of my bookings data into my spreadsheets, and that's where I'm doing a lot of my analysis. And we can then say, you know what? We've got a bookings data set. Why don't you jump on that in Tableau and start using that and see if you can utilize that before you start looking at your spreadsheet and importing your spreadsheet. So that had high benefits. The other side of it was it allowed us to really figure out what our data strategy was going to be and how we were going to go forward with our best practices in terms of Tableau consumption of the information. Doing different data sets and different types of data sets was also critical in understanding our security model. So looking at different data sets that may need lower level security versus ones that were a little bit more open allowed us to look end to end at really what the strategy needed to be from an access perspective. Training and adoption. We initially, went out when we knew we were going to be implementing Tableau, and we wanted to get everybody excited about it. So we went to a lot of different, meetings with executives, a lot of, where we knew we were going to have business users and business functions across the company at. And, we did that marketing, we got that excitement, and it was great, but I can tell you what, too. I mean, I definitely got calls from people that said, I am so excited. We are implementing Tableau. It's going to solve all of my issues. All of my data inconsistencies are going to be gone. No more manual efforts. And, the reality is that's not always the reality, right? So something that we did is, as users were interested in using Tableau, we did one-on-one onboarding with them. And this has been absolutely critical. Not only are we able to set better expectations from them in terms of what they should think about Tableau for and how they should be thinking about it for their organization, but we're really making sure that they're going to be successful in their use of it. Different organizations have different maturity models. Some organizations can get off, go running with Tableau, and you never hear from them again. They're good to go. Other organizations, they know that they want to use Tableau, but they don't really know where to start. So this one-on-one onboarding was really great to make sure that we were getting them in and getting them successful right away. From a training perspective, Tableau actually has some really great on-demand trainings on their website. And so we stayed away from focusing so much on the tool and the functionality and focused more on what Tableau meant at VMware. So a few things that we did with that. One is we created a quick 15-minute e-learning that as people were saying, hey, I'm interested in Tableau, I want to know more about it, they could play this 15-minute e-learning, learn more about what Tableau meant at VMware, how it was set up, talk about the environments, talk a little bit about the governance, and go into some quick demos depending on what type of user you were, what it was going to look like for you. The other thing that we did was create a tool usage guidelines. So I talked about that we do have other tools at VMware, and one thing that users say is, why would I use Tableau over these other tools that I have? And that was really key in terms of being able to say, if you want to do X, Y, and Z, Tableau is your tool. You should absolutely go for it. That's going to be your solution. If you want to do 1, 2, 3, Tableau isn't your solution. You shouldn't be looking at Tableau, and we have the other solutions that you should be utilizing instead. The other side of it was this power user community. So we wanted to make sure that our power users were being successful. If you have developers in the organization that aren't successful utilizing Tableau, you're not going to have success through your enterprise. You really want to make sure that people that are developing the information, developing the analytics, are the ones that are going to be driving adoption and really be the champions for the organization. Some things that we're starting to do now with our power user community, one of them is create an environment, social cast really for people to ask questions, to collaborate, to be able to share ideas, tips and tricks. And the other thing is creating a Tableau Power Hour is what we're calling it. So this is where we really want to make sure that we're getting all of the power users across the enterprise together, learn from each other, share experiences. We're actually going to have a session with, we have Tableau coming in a couple weeks and going over the 8.2 release to talk a little bit more about what that means for them and how it can change some of the reporting that they're doing today. So we implemented Tableau in March, and so I wanted to give you guys a little bit of an idea of where we are today. So I thought it was important to look at both of those environments because I think it's key to be able to see the usage that we're having in both of these. We do have users set up identical on both environments. We have over 300 users and over 30 groups now onboarded since March, which is great. When we look at the environments and the actual usage, we've had 63,000 interactions in our innovation environment, while we've had 3,000 in production. From a report generation perspective, we have over 2,000 workbooks and dashboards in innovation versus 45 in production. From a data set perspective, we did create the Tableau-ready data sets in which there were 19 that were created. And on top of that, we have 56 data sets that are now being published into our innovation environment. So when some of you look at these numbers, you may think, wow, it doesn't seem like their production environment's really hitting the mark there. It doesn't seem like it's being very successful. I see this picture, and I think it's extremely successful. What we're doing is we're taking out a lot of that noise that we don't want to focus on in production. There may be some reports, some content, some data that may be throwaway work. It may be something that doesn't need to be shared with the rest of the enterprise. And a lot of the model that we have today that we're trying to get away from, right, is people coming in with requirements. They think they know what they want. We spend 3 months developing it. We send it out to users, and nobody uses it. So when I see this picture, I think it's hugely successful. The other part of it is all of the data sets that we're seeing published. It really gives us an opportunity to go in and say, what are you publishing? What are you looking at? Why don't we have that as part of the enterprise? How can we automate that information for you? And the other thing is just bringing some of these users on to this enterprise managed environment that we've never even seen before. So when I look at this picture, it actually really excites me. And some of the things that we're going to be doing moving forward is looking at the usage from some of the groups. And if there's a lot of reports, a lot of content, a lot of data being published in this innovation environment, we want to make sure that we're working with them to understand what we can do to support them and if it makes sense for them to start moving some of their stuff to production. We've talked about the enablement part of it. So I wanted to really give you guys a vision and show you some real benefits that I've been able to see since we've implemented Tableau from a business perspective. So one thing is really connecting the business, connecting them to our data, connecting them to solutions, connecting them with each other. A great example and success story that I really like to tell with this one is the one-on-one onboarding that we've had. We had 3 requests come in from 3 different reporting teams, and they were all from the exact same organization. Our organizations are very big at VMware, and they all wanted access to Tableau. And all 3 of them did not know that the other existed or wanted to do anything with Tableau. And so what we did is we got them together and said, hey, you guys, what are you trying to do? Who are your consumers? What's your end goal? What kind of information are you trying to use? And it was great to be able to connect them, so now they're working together as one team. There's not that duplicated effort. There's not the different metrics. There's not the different reports that are going out from these 3 different teams, but they're working as one now. New insights. So I like to call it, now we have a new lens on old data. So a lot of the information that people were looking at in spreadsheets and in their PowerPoint, those types of things, they're looking at it the same way all the time. With Tableau now being able to look at, size comparisons, having color bring out, really where they should be focusing on, has really enabled quicker decision making as well. The executive focus. So our executive teams, when they see Tableau, they are so excited and they say, when can my organization get onto Tableau? we have quarterly business reviews at VMware, and talking to people who prepare for these quarterly business reviews, they say it is so painstaking in terms of converting their information to PowerPoint, making sure that if there's questions that come up, they can quickly change the PowerPoint presentations for the next day's review. It's very painful. The other side that we hear from the executive audience is they don't ever feel like they have real visibility in terms of the information that they're getting. People can change numbers easily in a PowerPoint presentation. With Tableau now, they have a way to interact with the data. And the people creating these QBRs now can just bring up the reports. If they need to do some storytelling with the information, they can. If they need to be able to put some text, point things out, they can do that right in Tableau itself. So that's really been a huge win. Streamlining the solutions. So again, we talk about all of these Excel reports that are out there today, and really being able to take a look at those and say, is that something that we already have available? Why don't we switch you over to the enterprise? If it's something that you really do manage and own in your spreadsheets, at least now you can automate that process and that analytic piece of it through Tableau. So my favorite part of this is the accelerated solutions. No more paper-based requirements. So, it's really exciting now that the analysts can go in and really figure out what they want to do, play with the information, play with the data, play with the reports, get that buy-in from users before we spend too much more time on it. And what this has really done also is let our IT teams focus a lot more on the strategic part, the bigger things, the data, the information, while letting the analysts do what they need to do from an analytic perspective. Some recommendations that I would have for you guys in terms of some lessons learned that we did is, we talk a lot about the business and what the business is doing. And as you stand up Tableau, it's a tool, but it's all about how the business is using the tool. So again, make sure that you're really focusing on the business and making sure they're successful, looking at some problems and say, how can Tableau, fix this for you? So again, our focus is on the executive. We really want to make sure that they are getting the reports, the information they need, getting excited about Tableau, and trickling that down through the rest of the organization. And then from the bottom up perspective, making sure that we're focusing on that power community and making them successful. What I would have done differently is do a couple of end-to-end solutions before our initial release and our initial rollout. So when we, went live with Tableau, we had some of the data sets. We had involved our power users early on in terms of making sure that they, agreed with the standards, the approach, the environments that we were setting up. But when we went live with Tableau, a lot of the executives were like, okay, so what am I getting now, right? And so it was a lot harder to tell that story of getting people excited about using Tableau. So what I would recommend is, take a couple of really key use cases and, run them through the process. Make sure that, the governance, the processes, the environments are going to work for you guys. And at the end of the day, if you actually have dashboards and you have real benefits coming to the business, then you can go out and really start selling that and getting people really interested in Tableau. Proof of concepts have been really good for us. I talk about the maturity of the organizations and that some organizations can go running with it, and other organizations need some help. And so what we've been doing with this is, if the organization comes to us and says, we really want to use Tableau, we don't know where to start, we just don't feel like we have the expertise to get there, we start up some proof of concepts with them. So we take a couple of use cases and we actually build out Tableau for them. We build out the analysis. We have them understand how they can use the reports, use the information to do what they're doing. And then we let them take it and run with it. So that's been really successful. Overall, especially when you're talking about a model of governance, is that you have got to stay flexible. Really understanding what are the key things that you may not want to, shift on at all. And then understanding as well areas that you may need to shift on and be a little bit more flexible. Tableau for us is going to be that thing that we want to make sure that we're keeping the business agile, and we have to keep that in mind as we keep going forward, moving solutions into production. So really staying flexible and making sure that you guys are, accommodating real business needs will help ensure that you're getting adoption. So with that, I really want to thank you guys for attending the presentation today. Hopefully you guys learned a couple of tidbits, some new strategies, some new insight, and can take that back to your organizations. So I'll take some questions. In the back.
So you talked about how you onboard new users on a one-on-one basis. Is there a process of validation or approval that they need to get in order to get access to the tool?
Yeah, actually, that's a great question because I think we have a lot of folks in the organization that maybe shouldn't be building reports, and so we do actually at least get approvals from their management team that they should be accessing Tableau. And we have some different roles on Tableau. So we do have what we call publishers, and those are the folks that have desktops so they can build the data. They can create the data sets that they need, publish reports. We have web authors, and those are people that are creating reports off of the pre-built data. So they can't get into too much trouble. And then obviously we have our consumers. So definitely the desktop users is something that we're scrutinizing more in terms of, do they really need desktop access?
What are some of the use cases you mentioned that Tableau wasn't the answer for? What other products or how do your users use to fit this solutions?
Yep. So we have OBIEE running today. We actually have like 4 different instances of OBIEE. And some of the things that we don't recommend Tableau for is especially if somebody needs to do a lot of, it's a lot more of the heavier data, the heavier lifting, cross-fact analysis. And especially if it's something that they already know what they want, it's more operational. It's more of the checks and balances, the trending, more simple things for the business. We still recommend it to stay on OBIEE because it's really what I call the chugger, the power horse, and something that we recommend using versus Tableau. Yep. So the question was just to talk a little bit more about the innovation in production and how we're getting people to move stuff there. So the innovation environment, the production environment, they are actually 2 completely different servers. And the production environment, we also have logically split the production environment, one with emerging and one with certified. So the emerging environment in production is also where users can utilize the certified data, the data that's already available to create reports, and they can publish to certified as needed. So that's really the environment where we keep a lot of the quick, rapid turnaround time of reports as long as they're using the certified data. In terms of some of the things that we've done to get people to want to move to production, one of them is we don't support our innovation environment like we support production. So again, we have snapshot data, so they can't get real live data in that environment. The other thing is we don't have the same SLAs. If something breaks, if something goes down, it's not going to be urgently looked at like the production environment. And we're using that as a way to keep people from not trying to get all their consumers using their reports and innovation too. We're saying you don't want consumers in this environment. The other part of the production is that the data is refreshed automatically. They have full SLA support. They have user support on there. I'm trying to think. I think the biggest thing too is that, again, we talked about when the consumers come in, they know that that's the certified area, that they know that that's where they should be going. So that's really a lot of the stuff that we've done in terms of making sure that people are moving to production. And the other thing that I talked about was that we do want to make sure that we're going in and monitoring our innovation environment a little bit. I think sometimes people are using our innovation environment and that's comfy and cozy for them and they don't really know how to move stuff to production. And so that's where we're going to go in and interact with them a little bit more to see what we can do to make sure that they understand the value add of moving it to production. Hi. Everybody's pointing to you.
Did you evaluate any other visualization tools, and what were some of the key factors that made you choose Tableau?
We did. I was not directly a part of that, but I know that ClickView was one of them, for instance. I can't probably give you too many details around that exercise because I wasn't a part of it, but we did evaluate other ones, and I think it was definitely capabilities, cost, the enterprise scale, all of those things came into play. Yeah, so we have 500 desktop licenses available, and right now we actually already have over 200 desktop users. So what we've, and we talk about kind of the evolution of Tableau and the power user community, and we know that we had to get the power user community onboarded, up and running, because they're the ones that are really going to be developing the content for the consumer. So if you look at the numbers of people on both of those environments or the interactions, I would say 80% of them are our developer community right now, while most of them are only accessing production that are consumers. But I'm hoping to see that consumer community grow and grow as we build more content and move it to production. Sorry, can you repeat that? How do I see it? Yeah, I think it's a really good question because we get into trouble with this a lot today with a lot of our reports is that we publish content and we say, oh, people are accessing, it's good, people are adopting it, right? And that's really not the case. So what we're doing, especially since our executive audience is really the key consumers right now for our reports, is that we're having conversations with them about how it's changing what they're doing today. How is it really enabling faster decision making? How are you getting new insights? Is it what you need? Is it what you want? Is there something differently that we need to do with the report? So it's really not only understanding, hey, people are hitting these reports, we're good to go, but it's, how is it really changing the way that you're consuming information today? Yeah, and for us, it's this paradigm shift we're trying to get into too. I like to call it, we're trying to get IT out of the business of being report jockeys, and we really do want to put more power in the hands of the business users. The tools that we had before, I talked about OBIE, which is the Oracle platform. They do have self-service. They have the answers tool functionality, but if there's something where they say, you know what, I really need to get some new data available in that, I really want to be able to look at it against this other data source, they had to export what was already there and do that in Excel. So, Tableau for us, one, just because of how sleek it is, how easy it is to use, being able to do that quick prototyping, that's really more of the self-service that we were looking for. So, self-service in a standard environment is still standard, right? You can do different slices and dices, but in terms of introducing new data, it usually takes still a longer time to be able to meet those needs.
For your end consumers, you have like a report portal that's built where all of your end dashboards go, or do they access it on a server? And if so, did you do like a report portal? Is that for everybody in the organization, or does each kind of entity, so like IT does theirs, HR does theirs, finance does theirs?
Yeah, so we have, I assume you guys can hear since I can hear, but so the question was how we're organizing our portals for consumers. And so right now we do have it, it's still by organization. And what we've tried to do from an ease of use perspective is that, when people publish dashboards, we're having them create kind of this front end portal that has links to the dashboards, that talks a little bit about the dashboards. It's more of that organized format, because it is hard on server, because you just have, really kind of that folder type of structure. So we're trying to have more of a front end, user interface for the users. Right now it is organized by organization. But I think that there's going to be, as we move more things over to production, it'll be focused also more on roles of users as well as subject areas. So something like bookings information, right? That's something everybody uses. So we want to make sure if somebody's publishing a bookings report for the organization that may be more global in nature, we want to make sure that everybody has access to that report, not just that organization.
Tableau, you were probably using some other BI. How is the company's kind of trust with comparing how they used to do it with the way you do it now in Tableau? And was there any kind of comparison?
It's a great question. And even with our data strategy that we have, because we do have data extracts, so that it's all coming from the same base of information, but being extracted. So you have a view in our Oracle, you have the same view possibly right in Tableau, and how do you make sure that those both match? And we haven't had issues with that. We did the testing to make sure that they were one-to-one. We also make sure that on all of our reports we have data refresh stamps, because a lot of times what you get into, right, is somebody says, the data's wrong, it's not right, and the reality is you're looking at data that may have not been refreshed since you put in that transaction or anything. So those are the couple things that we're doing. I also think from a trust perspective, we've still had a hard time in general getting users to trust some of our corporate tools. Where they get in, they see things and they say, that's not right, I'm not using it. And again, putting more of the ownership with the business and having them say this is a certified report has definitely helped with that trust, because they're the ones that are, they feel like they're really making sure that they're putting that official stamp on it, not us. In the back.
Can you give a flavor for what has been sort of the most successful group using Tableau so far? What's driven most of the adoption?
That's a great question, Kyle. He's our slalom dude. Probably a bigger widespread adoption has been, I know that we have an IT organization right now that is utilizing it for real-time monitoring of their uptime and availability. And they've configured Tableau even a little bit differently, where they're doing guest accounts, and so users can hit that. It's not sensitive information, and so they can get to the information quickly. And they're using more of that live connection function, and it's worked really well for them. And they used to go in with spreadsheets to our executive team, once a day and say, here's what's happening, here's how it's going. And now the executives can just access those dashboards directly and take a look whenever they need to. The other one is really an organization that we were really trying to change and get away from spreadsheets and get away from the duplication. We created these Tableau dashboards for this executive, this VP. And it's something that he loves. He uses it. He says, I don't look at the presentations anymore. I go to this. I go to this when I know I need to get to my information. And that's been a huge driver in terms of him, again, telling his team, look, you guys, you need to get on board, because this is how I want to start looking at my information. Awesome. Well, I appreciate all the questions, you guys, and thanks again for coming.